Right, Chair, we're live.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Welcome everybody to the Housing and Homelessness panel this evening. Let's kick off with agenda item. Actually, should we have introductions first? Should we just whiz round and introduce ourselves? I think that might be nice. Should we just go across the Tom, do you want to go first? And I'll call people out to go across.
I'm Tom Hudson, a scrutiny officer. So I'm the person who sort of supports this meeting and tries to sort of do all the work behind the scenes.
Thank you, Tom. I'm Linda Smith. I'm chairing the meeting. I'm City Councillor for Lye Valley. Simon.
Hello, my name's Simon Ward. I'm the Tenant Involvement Manager at Oxford City Council.
Bill.
Yeah, I'm Bill Graves, I'm Landlord Services Manager for the Council, and I'm part seconded to work on our new IT system for the equivalent of 3 days a week for a while.
And, that's interesting to know.
Yeah, and as part of that, I'd like to move to Pat Andrade next, who's been brought in to provide the managerial capacity within the team for me to do that. And she's working alongside Anne Phillips to actually deliver that. So both stepping up to an extent to actually give me the space. So.
Great, welcome, Pat. Yeah, would you like to just introduce yourself?
I don't know what to say after Bill's introduced me, thank you. Yeah, I'm Patricia or Pat Andrade, just recently new to the council, working alongside Anne and Bill in housing services to support the service, whilst Bill is otherwise cordoned off somewhere else for a time with QL.
Welcome to the council, Pat. Ian.
Hello, I'm Ian Wright and I'm the Head of Regulatory Services and Community Safety.
Good to have you here, Ian. Liz.
Hello, I'm City Councillor for Wolvercote.
Chris.
I'm Chris Jarvis, City Councillor for St Mary's.
Nadine. You're on mute, Nadine.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm City Councillor for Little Moor. Hi.
Lizzie.
Hi, I'm Lizzie. I'm City Councillor for Carfax and Jericho.
Thanks, Lizzie. Lawrence.
Hi, I'm City Councillor for Cutslow and Sunnymead.
All right, thanks everyone. Apologies. I'm not aware of any apologies this evening. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest from councillors or officers? No? Okay, let's go on to item number 3. Is there actually anything to note here, Tom? This is the work plan.
That it will be agreed by scrutiny, so there's nothing else to note.
Okay, that's fine. Agenda item number 4, notes of the previous meeting. We're asked to agree these. This is the meeting held on the 2nd of February. Does anyone have anything they wish to raise on those minutes? If not, can we agree them? All those in favour, say aye. Thank you very much. Right, and so let's go to agenda item number 5, which is our first substantive item this evening, which is to receive an update on the motion passed by full council on DSS discrimination in the housing sector in Oxford. Who would like to start off with the introduction to this report?
Yeah, I can go through the report. So yeah, the council passed an all-party motion on the 26th of July last year. And there are a number of actions which came out of that particular motion, and I'll just update everybody here with where we've got to with those. So the first one was related to our landlord and letting agent accreditation scheme that we run in the city. So we do have this scheme. There's 20 letting agents which are currently accredited by the council, and we require them to abide by a code of conduct, and part of that includes a section around how they operate their business. So the wording that was agreed by the council has been included into our accreditation scheme. So it's very clear that if letting agents did discriminate against tenants who happen to be on universal credit or housing benefit, then one of the sanctions would be to take them off that scheme. I can report that to date we've not had any complaints which have come to us regarding agents who have not been complying with that particular part of the scheme. So updates gone in. The second action related to the welfare reform team and to ensure that particular part of the council looks out for and follows up on reported cases of discrimination. So as part of the report, I contacted that service, and they've come back and said that they haven't identified any landlords who are continuing to use this type of discrimination, but they do remain vigilant and will report them if they do find any. The third action was to ensure that our duty housing officers have been informed about the issue, and training and guidance has been given to all the relevant staff who, again, are aware of the no DSS discrimination. And again, to date, we haven't had any cases identified which have required any referral through to our service or anywhere else. So, which that is good news. The fourth action was to establish a tenants forum, and for that forum to be composed of community groups, stakeholders in both private and council housing, and that once that group was formed, it will then be part of the stakeholders that the panel here would be involved with. As it stands at the moment, Councillor Thomas has been leading on setting that up. Press releases have gone out asking for people to reply directly to her and to register their interest online. So at the moment, that particular action is underway, and hopefully we will be able to get a group together of interested tenants and be able to move that forward. And they will be, we've got a tenancy relations officer in our service, and I'm sure that both ourselves and housing officers will be able to help support that group, get it up and running, and then it will be able to service itself. So that's the fourth action.
Thanks, Ian. Sorry, can I just stop you there because Tom Hudson's waving his hand.
Just to feed in, I had an email update from Councillor Thomas, who says it should be possible to have an initial meeting of this group in the next month. So that's the sort of timescale that's being looked at for the first meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Ian. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
Yeah. Okay. And the final action was around using media activities and to improve awareness and to update the council's website. So the motion itself generated quite a lot of interest nationally. It was picked up by quite a few landlord groups, such as Landlord Zone and the Negotiator. Shelter also picked it up and commended the council, because this was the first time that a council had carried out this action. Bristol City Council contacted us and were very interested in what we'd done as well. So I think the actual impact has been a real positive one. So that's really good. And the council's website has a page. It's in the private tenants guidance, and it's specifically about benefit discrimination. What they need to do if they do experience it, such as report it to the relevant teams, the welfare reform team, private sector safety team, and there's links to the shelter website. And the shelter website has got some very helpful templates for tenants to use to complain and to start the action themselves if that's what they want to do, and then ultimately some guidance around the property ombudsman if the agent is registered with them, and if not, then the alternative scheme. So there's advice there for tenants that shelter provide. So, in summary, all the actions have been progressed, and certainly in terms of the profile that the council's managed to gain out of this, it's been very successful, and it's highlighted the important work that we are doing in this area.
Thanks, Ian. Can I just ask a quick question before I see if others have got questions? Who's the cabinet member responsible for this area of work? Is it Ian or Deco? Sorry, is it Alex or Deco?
Okay, well, Alex is the private rented sector lead, and I think it was himself and Councillor Thomas who helped put this motion together, I believe, as well as other councillors. The lead, I would say, is going to be Deco overall.
Okay, I'm not sure that clears things up.
If it helps, I had a chat because I asked Alex sort of about this at council last night, and we think it is going to be Deco who'll lead on it. So yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, let's open this up to questions and comments. Liz, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. I just wondered, Ian, if you'd had any response from landlords, whether they were reasonably positive about this being introduced, or whether it's met with any resistance because they don't think it's necessary or whatever.
I think the response from landlords, certainly from the feedback that I've had from officers, it's fairly muted. I think a lot of landlords aren't going to be overtly saying that this is what they actually do, and certainly not wanting to raise that as something with us. So really, this is more of a tenant's experience this and then coming to us. It's more of a reactive initiative I see, and certainly more. It's a campaigning activity that the council's carried out, and I think it has achieved that aim of flagging this. Not everybody was aware of the case which had happened in York, which had sort of changed the legal status. So that's worked, but I wouldn't say that we've had many inquiries from landlords about it at all.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think they'd have much of a leg to stand on, would they? Because we've had a landlords forum for quite a number of years now. So really, this is just about balancing things up, I would suggest. Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Linda, and thanks. It's great to hear the progress that's been made on this, and it's really important piece of work. I just had a quick question really about the forum, and it may be that you don't have the information today, but I was just wondering sort of how many people have come forward so far from the efforts to get people onto that forum. And if I know that, Tom, you said that it's looking like in the next month that would be able to start sitting, but whether there's still a need for recruitment of more people, and if so, what councillors can do to help push people towards that. Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, I haven't got any information on how many people have come forward. I mean, I would say that if there's more people want to come forward, the more the better. I think because to be honest, certainly sustaining private tenants in this type of forum is quite difficult. There's always a churn in the private sector. A lot of private sector tenants have got other challenges in their lives, which means it's often quite difficult for them to join in to this sort of thing. So if you've got the ability to encourage more people to join, then please do so.
Could I just add to that, given that the press release has only just gone out and the social media stuff that has been designed is going out this week as well. I think there is definitely an opportunity for getting more people involved. So yeah, if you know people who would be of value to them, then please do put them in contact. I think that's the message, really.
Thanks, Tom. Lizzie.
Yeah, I had two questions really. My first one was about kind of outreach about the fact that this is now something that you can kind of raise directly with the council, and whether that sort of the work that we've been doing has been kind of explicitly stated to people that are also likely to come into contact with people who are likely to suffer from this form of discrimination, like any of the homelessness services or third-party organisations like advice centres and similar, who might benefit from sort of knowing about whether that sort of explicit contact has been made from the communication side. And also this might have already been covered, and also probably too early to tell, but might the tenants forum be somewhere where we could potentially occasionally co-opt someone onto this panel, so we've got some representation from the private rented sector as well as from people who rent from the council? Those are my 2 points.
Okay, so I mean, publicity went out around the motion and what the council was doing about this and trying to achieve what it was trying to achieve. In terms of explicitly contacting a range of organisations, I don't think that's been done. But I'm quite happy to include that as something coming out of this, that we can push further and advertise further, that this is the message that the council's pushing out there. Will be something that, for instance, our tenancy relations officer will be aware of, and making the landlords and tenants that they deal with aware of it. But certainly happy to pick up on that part and move that forward. In relation to the tenants forum, I think it's Councillor Thomas that's leading on that and how that operates, and I think it will be best for her to really respond to that on how she sees that the panel operating. The motion itself said that the panel will be invited to consult directly with the panel twice a year, and whenever decisions significantly impacting the rental sector come before the council. So, certainly anticipate that there will be quite a lot of engagement with that particular forum.
Could I also add, it is sort of later on in the agenda, we're talking about what shape we want the panel to sort of be for next year. So it is within your gift to, if you want to appoint someone as a co-optee or such like, it's totally up to the panel if that's what they would like to do. So yeah, it is an option if you want someone sitting here as a representative of the private rented sector.
Thanks, Tom. Nadine.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Chair. No, it's just a comment, actually. This is great to see how this has progressed so much. It was obviously this work was well overdue, because we've got lots of tenants here in Oxford, and the work also is born out of the activism of ACORN, the tenants union, which the motion on the ISS and was created, was triggered with that. And so this is very good, and it's just to recognise the work of Councillor Thomas, Imogen, as well as the work of the grassroots campaign ACORN. Yeah.
Done.
So great job anyway altogether. Well overdue for Oxford. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nadine. Lawrence.
Yes, I'm very pleased to read this report. One very quick question, I hope. Will there be any form of annual report or to council about the number of cases identified and how well this scheme is working?
I don't think that was planned. I mean, I think in terms of number of cases and what the council's doing about that. I mean, if that's something that the panel here is interested in, I'm quite happy to go around my colleagues and come back and provide yourselves with some information. Would that be helpful?
Yes, I think either to us or to as part of a report to council from the scrutiny panel.
I think maybe if we could just earmark a report to come back here in a year's time with a further update, that would be useful. Yeah.
Okay.
Cover that. Okay, I've got some questions. So the first one is about the usefulness of it having social tenants and private rented sector tenants together in one forum. I would have thought that the issues faced by both and the remedies to them are very different. Also, I'm thinking about possible future resourcing of this in the future. So who is actually going to clerk this forum and look after the bureaucracy of it? And I would have thought, if it does come down to the council to resource this in future, it would be easier for the HRA to make a contribution to cover the activities of our council tenants, and for one of the licensing schemes or the licensing schemes possibly to make a contribution towards the activity of the private rented sector tenants. Is that something we should be mindful of? Does it was council right asking for this forum to cover the whole sector, council tenants and the private rented sector, or would it perhaps have made more sense to have two separate forums? And then my second question, is I'm not sure if this is for you, Ian, but more one for us to ask ourselves. But I was surprised by the emphasis in the press release about the forum working with us. We're not decision makers here. We're a scrutiny panel. We just ask questions and make recommendations, which is possibly similar to what this forum is going to be doing. Perhaps it might be better for it to be made clear that this panel really, we're going to get the most use out of it if it's working closely with the relevant cabinet members and with senior council officers like yourself, Ian, when you're developing policy and looking to monitor the effectiveness of the council's operations in this area. Not to rule out them the forum working with us as a panel and as sitting together to look at areas of mutual interest, but I wouldn't have thought working with us should really be the core of the forum's activity. Just wondered if you had any comments on that.
Yeah, just going back to your first question about the needs of private rented sector tenants, being different to council tenants. Yes, I suppose there's quite often some different issues there, but ultimately, it was council that's made that decision that they should be put together, and I think in terms of resourcing it, certainly I got the impression that the aim is that this will be ultimately it will be a body that will be able to service itself, but with some assistance from us to actually get there. Which is a direction that we're looking at in with the locality way of working, where communities ultimately are able to sort of service themselves. But clearly, there is going to be a need for officers to have some input, certainly in the early days of how the panel develops, to try and assist. Whether that will require specific funding, clearly that's going to be a matter for Councillor Thomas to raise with housing or with ourselves. There's limitations on what we can actually spend our money on, which come from licence fees. But some officer time, certainly, with our tenancy relations officer, I've seen that as this will be a useful way of engaging with private sector tenants. So I don't see an issue with that. I think when it comes to how involved the forum and what the topics are, I think that really does remain to be seen as to how it's composed, who's there, and what the issues are at the time. And I suppose if it's a useful forum for tenants to raise their concerns and have those heard by councillors, and then for you as councillors to move that into the council, how you do when you've got those issues, which then come to officers to take up. I see that as being a benefit for private rented sector tenants and council tenants to have that model, and it's about the value of you as a committee, isn't it, that you're able to then influence people in that way.
Okay, Bill, thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I think while there are some real commonalities between the private sector tenants and council tenants, there's some very different issues. And obviously, as a council, we are the landlord, and our tenants will obviously be concerned with our customer service, our repairs, our investment in our stock. And it might actually find, it's just an observation, that having a joint panel might actually be quite difficult to sustain if you've got these very different unconnected issues. You might find that interest wanes over time if they're not actually separate. I do welcome both, of course, but I do think that would be a real challenge for someone having an integrated panel.
Yeah, I share your concern, Bill. I think when people come along to a meeting like this, often it's because they want to talk about their own issue and hear about their own issue, and if they're hearing about something else entirely, they might not come back.
Yeah.
Nadine.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's completely unrelated, but thank you for letting me talk. So, I just wondered about the section 21, which obviously is related to what the work we are doing here in the panel. And I wondered if the local authority had any way of looking at the legislation again, or having any power to change that, or what this panel can do, or is it obviously a core kind of central government legislation that we don't have any power over? I wondered if there is any movement that has happened on the section 21 no-fault evictions, which is very important for our tenants as well.
Okay, as you said, it's a separate issue, but Ian, while you're here, do you want to give us is there any update on that? I know it's something that the council is very actively sort of lobbying central government on, isn't it?
Yeah, ending section 21 evictions. It's something that the council's been keen to see. As it stands, I'm not aware of anything that's going to change that in the short term. I'm just looking to see.
There is a renters reform bill which may come forward later this year, which would include that, but that's not definite yet.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that update, Bill.
And certainly, the noises coming out of DLUC around levelling up. I didn't see anything in there around section 21. Primarily around the application of the decent homes standard to the private rented sector. So I certainly didn't see anything about levelling up tenancies.
Yep.
Okay, let's get back to this agenda item. I think I've heard the grounds for 3 possible recommendations. Shall I outline those, and then if anyone else has got anything else that they want to add, they can chip in. So the first one was the point which I think it was Lizzie you made about publicising the forum to relevant stakeholder partners and agencies working in the city. So they're aware of it and can signpost their clients to it. Secondly, I think, I don't know if other panel members share my concerns and Bill's concerns about the effectiveness of having a forum for council tenants and private rented sector tenants. But obviously that is what full council voted for, and so that is what we've got. But I think possibly we should keep that under review to see whether there should be a split in the future. Maybe that's something when the forum is established itself, you know, that could be something for them to consider. So that would be the second recommendation. And the third one would just to perhaps when we're talking about how the forum will interact with the council, to make it clear that, you know, working with this panel is, you know, one element of how they will contribute to the council, but it's really about being consulted on key issues by council officers and the relevant cabinet members as well. That will probably be a bigger part of how they contribute. Is there support for those three, first of all?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, good. Thank you. Any others?
Is it all right, Chair, if that last one, I sort of put an explanatory note, but I wouldn't necessarily think that as an actual recommendation. It's more just sort of clarifying. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, yep. Okay, thank you very much. I think that concludes that item. Thank you for joining us, Ian. So we're going to move on to next item now. Let me just get my Reports for approval.
So reports for sign off. This was circulated separately. So this is a mini review into tenant involvement and empowerment, which hopefully everyone has had a chance to read. I have to say, I'm very pleased with what we've got so far. So thank you very much, Tom, for all your work on this. Does it? I'm not sure it needs an introduction, really. Or do you want to say something, Tom, or should we just go into discussion?
All I was going to say really was that sort of bit of a time pressure. So the key thing was about getting the sense across. So there are factual things sort of missing, and there may well be sort of proofreading errors which will be cleaned up. But for me, the most important thing is what I've put sort of. Does it reflect the views of the panel, but also to the officers? Does it suggest anything that is going to cause major problems that we need to visit to sort of to reflect how we go about making those points? So there's sort of two elements, I think, to it really. Bill, I see. Well, sorry, Jay. I won't
Bill,
share this.
please go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of observations. I don't know whether, and some of them could be actually quite important to the recommendations, and just a couple of clarifications I just don't want to let go through without just picking the actual detail up. And are you happy for me to actually pick those up now, Chair?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah,
okay.
Pleased to hear from you,
the very first one is in the intro, and it's just a clarification on the 85% of respondees stated they were satisfied with the council's customer service, so which is an important point to make. So it's just a clarification. Overall satisfaction is slightly lower than that figure. So customer service, 85% of tenants are satisfied with the council's customer service. Moving further on, it's the I'm just scrolling down through, so apologies. The one with the board with a cabinet name, the recommendation 2, council establishes a board with a cabinet member, senior officers and tenant and leaseholder representatives. I think that's really good. The only concern I would have, they might not be representative of the tenant base, and we just need to make sure that we get complementary input from the other methods of involvement that we worked so hard to get into place. The next one is,
before you move on,
Just on-
could I just get clarity exactly what your how do I need to amend that to is it good as it stands, but we just need to add something to say, you know, this shouldn't replace other things that have been developed?
Yeah, I think it should just recognise that there are other tenants involved with us who wouldn't necessarily want to go to a board forum, but their contribution is equally as important to the overall piece.
Yeah, just on that, Bill. So I think that's an important point to make about the other avenues, particularly those that focus in on people from a particular background, being really useful in terms of insight. But perhaps we could put something in about a recommendation board as well, and just make the point that it should be representative, and perhaps have representation from different parts of Oxford, as well as possibly different age. We could consider having representatives there from on a different basis as well, perhaps age or and so on, you know, youth rep or something,
Geographically and demographically.
but it should be we should make sure that it's representative of a broad spectrum of our estates as well, and houses which aren't on estates, street properties.
Yeah, thank you. The next one is recommendation 6, that the council recruits a tenant ambassador for those in sheltered accommodation. The first thing I need to just to make clear to the panel is we don't actually have any sheltered accommodation. We don't. Our schemes, which used to be sheltered schemes, no longer meet any definition of sheltered. So we've got over 3,000 of our properties have at least one tenant who's over 65, and of those former sheltered schemes, they only make up about 10% of that proportion. And in many ways, some of the more vulnerable older tenants are actually living outside of those schemes, which the alternative name is housing for older people, but they're not sheltered in the current definitions. And it might actually be worth the panel considering extending that to older people, services for older people. Although I think it's worth pointing out we don't actually have any funding for any services over and above the bricks and mortar and being a landlord for older people. So that is something just to be aware of. I was very conscious of the results from the STAR survey with older people, because a lot of older people are remembering when the county council used to provide wardens, and which then went on to kind of a floating support, and then gradually that was phased out, and then they phased out the alarm provision. So a lot of people still have the thinking that is still in existence, whereas in fact it actually stopped before I joined over 9 years ago. So I think that's that's something just to bear in mind. So if we can expand it to older people and maybe look to see what kind of remit they could have in terms of isolation, linking in with the third sector and communities, that might be something the panel may wish to consider as a slightly more alternative.
Yeah, I'd support that, Bill. Let's take out the reference to sheltered and just talk about the needs of older people.
Yeah. recommendation 8, which is council includes ward level data when deciding where and on what to make capital investment in housing. And we actually do this to street and property type level. We carried out significant reviews taking into account a number of factors such as the cost of repairs, the EPC level, the antisocial behaviour perceptions, relet times, rent arrears, and all sorts of other factors. So there is a very detailed, it's a huge spreadsheet, you don't want to go into it, but in terms of all this information has been captured down to an individual property level. So we have got that. But it would just, I mean, happy for it to be a recommendation, but it is already in place.
What do members think? Is it worth keeping it, or should we?
How does it actually feed into decisions about capital expenditure?
Yeah.
So the result, is there that connection between the survey and? Yeah.
It's essentially between it's property services who manage the investment programs. That data is their key set of information. And obviously, they're continually updating that information as and when we improve buildings.
Liz, your hand is up.
Yes, it's a separate issue, actually, if I can bring it in at this point, because I know I've got to go soon. It's recommendation 3, the Planned Housing Development Working Group. I think the problem is a small one in a way. It's the title of it. I think if it's really going to be about internal, about the way that the people's houses are set up internally, I think in a way that's got to be in the title so that people know what they're signing up for. At the moment, Housing Development Working Group could be almost anything really of any scale, and you're going for something very specific, aren't you, with this particular working group? Let's talk about how people see their houses being designed. So I wonder if something about that could be in the title, because we have a lot of groups and boards and stuff, and I think they need to be carefully distinguished because we need different people on each of them, don't we? Okay, that's just my question. Thank you.
That sounded sensible, Liz. Thank you.
I have one more, Chair.
Okay.
If I could.
Tom, can we incorporate
Yep.
Liz's point into that recommendation? Thank you. Bill, let's carry on.
Yeah, the last one I want to make a comment on is recommendation 15 regarding the councillor casework system for housing issues. I mentioned that at the previous meeting. I'd certainly welcome that. It would require a budget bid from the Legal and Democratic Services team, because as well as having the information, you need devices, peripherals, data, SIMs and so on. The pilot that we're doing at the moment is establishing what those costs and the cost of developing the various forms to service that activity will be on a form basis and on a device basis as well, so for individual users. So we'll have the business case there, and we'll feed that into the legal team in Democratic, so they can actually include that in this year's budget round.
Okay, it's good to know, Bill. It's a shame we can't get it in place ready for the new cohort of councillors this May, but to know it's in progress is
we won't have it in place. We won't have it in place for our staff until the pilot staff until probably the beginning of June. But it's it is very exciting. I'm sure we can overcome any hurdles on GDPR as well.
Okay, that was really helpful. Thanks for that input, Bill. Does anybody else have any comments, recommendations for change? Any ideas about something we've missed?
There were some questions I had just that I struggled with when writing. So paragraph 33, it's the one on that the council works to develop a distinct housing sort of identity. I was struggling to sort of really understand the rationale to be able to sort of put the case forward. Could I just, I think it came from you, Linda, didn't it?
Yeah.
Could you give me like just a little sort of illustration of where your brain is going with that, so that I can
Okay, yeah, I mean,
you
they're
don't
happy
have
to.
now. If you want to do it sort of subsequently, then that just to raise that.
Yeah, I'm happy to flesh it out afterwards, but I think it's basically about it's hard for, one of the problems we've got with tenants is they're not sort of trusting the council as a landlord and not feeling listened to. It's hard to develop that relationship when there isn't a strong brand or identity of what you're dealing with. There's the council is the council, which is the same council that empties the bins and collects the council tax and all manner of things for everybody. And then you've got ODS, which now has a very strong brand and identity, and I suspect tenants have a stronger idea about how they feel about that as a result of that. But ultimately, as far as tenants are concerned, that ODS are just a contractor. It should be council as a landlord that they have a relationship with and feel they can trust and get good service from. So I don't know if that makes it clearer, but we can have a conversation after the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. And the second issue that I wanted to raise was about ASB. ASB seems to be one of the topics where there is there's a sort of policy difference between the council and tenants, and it's one of the things that came quite low in the staff survey. I think it was sort of the worst result in so it's in some ways it suggests to me that is an important thing that we should be talking to tenants about. But at the same time, if the council has made a genuine policy decision that actually we need to just as much support those who are perpetrating ASB because there's a reason for them doing so, and that's kind of the thinking that was behind the ASB policy, then it would turn any sort of anything on that into a talking shop, if you like. And I just wasn't sure as to where members wanted to go with that, because it was an issue, but I couldn't see how it would work well and actually empower tenants.
I agree it's an issue, Tom, but I'm not sure I share your analysis of our ASB policy. I think it's pretty robust about seeking resolutions, as well as making sure that there are diversionary activities on offer.
Not punishment, I think is the key difference, I think.
Well, we're a council, we're not the police or the CPS. You're absolutely. Thank you, Tom, for highlighting the fact that it is a really important issue, and perhaps something that we should make more of in this report, because it is a serious source of dissatisfaction for residents. I mean, something I'm quite aware of. When I first came on the council about 8 years ago in Blackbird Leys, we would have neighbourhood action groups where councillors, some local representatives from the parish council and the police would sit down every few months and talk about the priorities of the local police neighbourhood team, and share information and concerns. I don't think that's happening in many places now, because the police are just so overstretched. They're covering larger and larger areas. They don't have the time to put into that kind of work. Maybe that's something that we should put a recommendation in about, or is that going away from really what this report is about? Ian, this is an area you oversee, isn't it? I mean, would you say I'm right about what's happening on a ward by ward basis in terms of councillors and council officers and the police working together, and could we aim to get more of that happening and make sure that there is an avenue for residents to get directly involved in that and to surface concerns as well?
I mean, certainly, you know, I mean, the ASB policy was very recently updated, and you know, I think the interpretation that Tom put on there, that it's somehow been watered down, isn't, you know, that's not what it was about. I mean, yes, you know, we do work with you know, some tenants who are displaying antisocial behaviour almost as a cry for help sometimes, but that's not by, you know, that's not about the majority of the cases. The majority of the cases, you know, we do have our robust approach to that. I mean, what you also talking about there is, you know, the neighbourhood action groups, which used to exist, and that just isn't there anymore, is it? As a way that the police deal with things. I certainly think any improvement with community working with the police is going to be welcomed by them and welcomed by us as well. You know, because whenever there are issues in particular areas, you know, as I know in your ward at the moment, you know, the police go off and bid for resources and then pour some more in, you know, which is what's happening at the moment. So any improvement in how the council and the police communicate has got to be welcome, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, Lawrence, can you help us with this?
I was just going to report a conversation I had with the, I think she's called the community beat manager for the northern half of the city recently about antisocial behaviour, and she told me that their resources are increasing slightly, and they are very keen, as a matter of policy, to restart engagement with the community. So I wonder if, and we talked about things like neighbourhood action groups and what have you, and she seemed very keen about it. So I think, given the pandemic may be almost over or may not, and the slight increase in resources available to Thames Valley Police, whether the council could be proactive in perhaps restarting some of these activities.
Yeah, why don't we have a recommendation about the council should seek to promote sort of ward-based working with the local neighbourhood police teams with input from residents. Basically, like getting us back to something like the neighbourhood action groups, but where council officers and you know, from the community response team and ASBIT could also go along and just to improve those local relationships with the police and provide a chance for residents to have their concerns heard as well. Tom, you had your hand up.
All I was wanting to ask Lawrence was that beat manager, is that technical? Is that their actual title, or is that a sort of?
No, it's my son-in-law used to be one. It's a term that certain police forces use for the police officer who's in charge of all the PCSOs in a given area.
Okay, right. So yeah.
It may not be used by Thames Valley Police.
Right.
I can't remember what her exact title is. The sergeant I was talking to, what her title is, but.
So can you tell me what links are like between tenancy management officers and the local police team generally? Is there any regular contact, or?
Usually only if they've got involvement with Ian's team, because that's where the big focus is. So, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, the focus of tenancy management usually wouldn't come across the police unless there was a bigger case that they were jointly working on with ASBIT or CRT. Because I don't know whether you've still got regular tasking meetings with the police, and I know that used to happen.
Yeah, there's daily contact with the police for our service, and there's a number of meetings that take place every week. I meet the Oxford James Sullivan, the inspector for the city, every week. And I know Richard Adams meets Bruce Riddell, the area commander, on a weekly basis as well. So there's very regular contact with the police.
Yeah. So in terms of tenancy management, less so unless it's needed, and that would be, let's say, with Ian's team.
Mm-hmm. And then we've obviously got Daniel Courtney, the problem-solving officer, who's funded by the PCC, based in community response team as well. And he works. He's like a sort of link person between the two organisations. So if you get a particular problem in a particular area, Daniel will come in and then work with ourselves and the police to try and provide a solution for that as a problem-solving officer. That's what he does.
Okay, thanks. Nadine.
Yes, no, so thank you very much, Chair. It's a question I wanted to ask Ian. Do you meet regularly with the neighbourhood police team, like the one in Littlemore, for example, because we have lots of queries, lots of casework related to antisocial behaviour, drugs, anything that could be of any interest to the police or neighbourhood police? That was just a question I was asking, sort of more specifically related to Littlemore, how the work was carried out there, if there was any involvement from the residents or any residents association or the parish council or anything like that.
Do you want to take this up afterwards if it's just about your wards? Is that okay? Can you have a conversation afterwards?
Well, any wards,
okay,
not necessarily my ward.
All right, fine.
Yeah, in relation to the work that we've got, ongoing at any time, it's. I don't think it's as straightforward as you think there. Where there's each ward is structurally looked at on that basis. It's more okay. There's a problem affecting a particular part of the city. We need to deal with that. Here's the solution for that particular problem, and it will largely be a case of informing councillors and getting their points of view. So the previous system which Linda's talked about was there was neighbourhood action groups which were installed and serviced by quite a lot of police officers and PCSOs. They met regularly. It's a very formal structural thing where people were invited in to say the top problem is for me is this, etc., and it was all voted on as to what were the next 3 priorities for the area. That's how it worked, and then obviously the resources have fallen away from that, and it's a different way that the police now operate, and yes, the aim is that there's going to be more resources and more neighbourhood policing, but policing isn't carried out like that. So if you as a ward member had a particular issue that was going on in your ward, you flagged that with us. We would then be liaising with the police and with Inspector Sullivan to try and come up with a solution for that particular issue and work together on that.
And where do the police fit in with the new locality-based way of working? Is there a connection there with the the new locality hubs and the way officers are working?
I mean, at the moment, it's the council, well, in particular the directorate that's arranging how that's going to operate, and then. The next stage after that, after we've sorted ourselves out, is then that engagement with the wider external partners. They know that this is the direction of travel for us, and they're quite happy with that and want to work with us on that basis. Because for them, those areas, broadly make sense. It's how they're operating, and they'll be able to, link in with those priorities that we identify. So, they are aware of it. But they'll be coming on in the second stage, if you will.
So maybe that's where we should make a recommendation about residents having a chance to raise ASB issues directly at that locality level for consideration by council officers and the police jointly to look for a locality response that involves the police as well as ASBIT.
If it's something that's affecting the wider area, then certainly, yeah.
Okay, maybe so if we could have a very broad recommendation that sort of suggests that, and also ward-based working, but ward-based working or locality-based working. Okay, thank you. Anything else anybody wants to raise? If not, is everyone just happy to delegate further changes to Tom and myself to fill in, you know, the gaps highlighted in red on the document before it appears at the scrutiny committee for final agreement? Yep, I can see people nodding. That's great.
I
All
do
right.
believe, Chair, just I think we have one of the tenant ambassadors with us, Susan Carson. Just wanted to give her the opportunity in case she'd seen the paper, if she had any comments.
Welcome, Susan. Is there anything you'd like to add? Are you there, Susan?
Yes. I just saw the document yesterday, so do not have any thoughtful comments to provide. I should just let you know that there is the in-depth assessors group is focused on the ASB issue, looking at the comments from the STAR survey, etc. And we're just beginning into that. I know that two of my colleagues from the ASB group had been part of your panel, but they're not there. And neither is someone that was also involved with this from council. So I can't provide, as I said, something reflective and thoughtful, as everyone has said, but there is a great deal of work being doing, and all of your more recent comments had in fact be discussed in our group. So as I said, I'm not certain if perhaps a little bit of input before you make your final recommendation from those that had been attending the panel but are not there today could be of use to you. Perhaps one can follow that up later or let you go ahead as it is. That is all.
I'll follow that up. I'll have words with those who have been involved previously and see if there are any other further comments.
Yes, because of course it's the question of do you want, and actually within council there is a very strong process with the ASBIT team as to getting input from the tenants. There's trigger processes, etc. So as I said, I do not know what has been said, so I'm not being very helpful to you all. And so if Tom is going to follow up on it and Linda, that will be very good. And I will inform my fellow ambassadors how they should have been here this evening. But
let's do that. That's fine. It's not the final opportunity because the report doesn't get signed off until the scrutiny committee. So there's still opportunities to add things.
Okay, so when is the scrutiny committee? When does that meet?
I think it's the 6th of April from memory.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I suggest we finish it there for now then and move on to the next item, which is arrangements for next year. We've got some questions here to ponder. Is the number of the participants on the panel right? Would the panel prefer that next year the meetings are held in person or virtually? And what do we think about external members, either as official co-optees or informal invites? I mean, I think perhaps it's best to wait. I mean, who knows who'll be chairing this panel next year? Obviously, the council AGM will take place in May. I think I'd be more comfortable if this was something the new panel, or at least the new chair, took forward.
It is certainly with the number of people, it's quite useful. I mean, my gut feeling is that 6 has worked very well. but that then helps all the groups work out how many people they need to find for the different panels and such like. So my feeling is 6 should continue, but yeah, the rest of it, if you want to defer that's absolutely fine.
I'd support that. Do we support that, keeping it as 6 for now?
Nadine? Yeah, hi, Chair. At the last AGM, though, there was a question about, I think it's Ed Turner, who said why there should be actually more participants on this panel, because there was more people who were registered in interest and wanted to be a part of the panel. So it's something that might be discussed before the AGM or after, before the AGM, obviously, you know. But there was it had been discussed. Well, there was lots of interest, and there was only obviously a limited amount of places in that panel. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll
just flagging that up. Sorry.
That will have an impact on the sort of political balance of things. So there will be stuff to think about if it were to grow beyond 6. But I shall certainly have a conversation with Ed to just get a sort of feel for his comments and how many people were interested and that kind of thing, and talk with other groups as well. See.
But there was last AGM, and I don't know what's going to happen this AGM. So it's
That's
always
true,
very different every year. It's always different every year. So yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, then yeah, we'll assume it's 6 then.
Who actually agrees the number? Is it agreed by scrutiny committee?
It's agreed by scrutiny, yeah. But obviously I need to write the report sort of ahead of time to and political groups need to know what the likely numbers are.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it being having a couple more members. Don't know what everybody else thinks. Yeah, is everyone happy with that? That is our view, but is realizing it's not really up to us to decide here now. Okay, that's great. Let's move on to dates of next meetings. At the moment, we've got the 3rd of August suggested. I mean, obviously, none of us know if we will still be here, but that doesn't work for me. Generally, I would prefer that we avoid the school holidays, but I know the 3rd of August definitely doesn't work for me.
Well, we do have time to move it, so yeah, I think I could move that sort of to July probably, if that worked, early July.
Can we try and get it in like before the schools break up in July?
Yeah.
Or failing that first thing in September after they go back.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's our final piece of business. So thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions to this panel over the year, councillors and officers. Yeah, it's been great working with you, and see you all on the other side of the elections.
Thank you, Chair.